What if your favorite heated rivalry scene wasn't just romantic tension, but a clue? Over the past week, I conducted a series of polls about your favorite scenes from Heated Rivalry, and the results are in. And what you chose tells a story, not just about Shane and Ilya, but about us. Welcome back to the Good Life Lab. I'm Dr. Dave. I'm a therapist, college professor, and positive psychology researcher turned content creator. And I'm in this current series I'm calling From Heated Rivalry to Real Loving Relationships. And my field is positive psychology, so I'm trying to help us move from the fantasy of heated rivalry, enjoying that, but then also bringing it back down to earth, our real lives, our real relationships, and how to enhance them, improve them, boost our mood in some way. Along with the fan favorite heated rivalry results, this video is the official launch of the Compass Quest contest for the month of March. So this is going out March 1st, which is the official start date, goes through March 31st. So I'll share more with you throughout this video as we reveal more fan favorites and clues to this contest that is a combination of heated rivalry scenes and themes, positive psychology research, which is my field, and also kind of a national treasure scavenger style hunt. Only this time the treasure isn't gold. It's the beginning of orientation around your own life and a few prizes, like an Amazon gift card, access to my Compass coaching framework, a new Compass Quest game that I'm introducing to help you walk through these stages of the Compass process, which helps you navigate direction and identity and community in your life. So those are a few of the prizes for the Compass Quest contest for the month of March. More details will be revealed throughout this video, so stay tuned, pay attention, and record the clues that you find and compile them for the end of March. Submit them, and you might see a prize come to you. So regarding the fan favorites for Heated Rivalry, I did a poll over the last couple weeks, and I have the top 12 results. So I'm going to go through each round of the poll. I have 3 rounds of preliminaries and then 1 final round, so we're going to go through each of those and how you voted. So the scenes I introduced for polling in the first round, I'm going to introduce them in terms of the percentage of vote they got from lowest to highest. The lowest vote percentage was You're Brave.
But you're brave. Shut up. Oh, you're brave. I feel like I'm going to die.
The scene that got the third most votes was the hotel confession, where Shane confesses to Ilya that he's gay, but that he also has feelings for Ilya.
Not just being gay, it's you.
The one that got the second most votes was the hospital realization. So that's just around Shane asking Ilya to come to the cottage with them and that whole scene.
You could have a week or even 2, be completely alone together.
And the scene that got the most votes from this first stage of polling was the Russian I Love You scene. And if we're fans of Heated Rivalry, this is iconic.
Не всегда только тебя. Я так сильно тебя люблю и не знаю, что с этим делать.
So the Russian I Love You scene got 73% of the vote. And right away we see that we chose something interesting, a quiet risk, a truth spoken undercover in a tunnel, but more importantly, under the protection of a foreign language. And that's important to note at this point in their relationship, because Ilya, even though he's confessing his love to Shane, Shane doesn't know that yet. And the audience for the first time, I wasn't sure if this was something more for Ilya, more than just a hookup, a series of hookups, or if he actually had feelings for Shane. You don't really know that at this point. And so it was so cool to see Ilya confess that, even though it was kind of in a clandestine way. So Ilya is leaving these subtle clues undercover for Shane, for the audience, and for himself perhaps. Sometimes, and this is where you want to pay attention for a clue for the contest, this is a line from one of my own revelations about one of my first heated rivalries in my life. It wasn't dramatic, no thunder, no angels. This is part of the breadcrumb I'm leaving you. You'll have to find the next sentence that completes this thought. I'll give you instructions to that later on in this episode. So hold on to this clue, write it down. We'll come back to it later. All right, so the second round of results for my poll for the Heated Rivalry fan favorites, the one that got the least percentage votes was their first time. So this is I think the hotel scene where they connect for the first time. That got the least amount of votes, which is surprising to me. I thought it was one of my favorite scenes. I suggested the Lillian and Jane texts as a potential favorite scene, where there was some tension there, and that only got 8% of the votes. The next scene I provided as a potential favorite was the press conference footy scene. That only got 8% of the votes. And the final scene in this second round of polling was the stairwell kiss.
Bye.
And that got 79% of the vote. So another big difference in terms of voting. The first round was the Russian tunnel scene. Now we have the stairwell kiss scene. Two of my favorites, and apparently your favorites as well. This time, the revelation is from the voting. Simple, tender stairwell kiss was your favorite, which brings me to another breadcrumb clue in this Compass Quest contest. So the second clue has two parts. So keep track of this phrase as well as the one I just shared with you previously. And it is, this is a story told in fragments and seasons. So jot that down. Look for the completion of that sentence later on. That's the first half of a phrase you'll need. But to complete the sentence, you'll need to find it in another location that I'll give you instructions to later on. So continue to pay attention. All right, the third round of results showed something interesting. I maybe stopped the polling a little bit too early when I did the finale and collected the top three for the finale, because as I waited maybe a day later, I saw that these scenes switched in how many percentage of votes they got. So I'm going to share with you what the original vote was and then tell you the difference. So the first scene in that polling that got the least amount of votes was the square peg round hole scene. We know it well. They only got 7%.
The thing is, I kind of prefer being the hole rather than the peg.
The tuna melt morning scene got 16%.
You want to make me a tuna melt?
I was gonna make one for me. I can make two.
And the cottage couch, which I thought would be number one because it's one of my favorites. Originally, in the first couple days of polling, only 39% of the vote. And then the wolf scene was a little bit higher at 39%, but a little bit more of the vote.
What the fuck was that?
A loon?
So I picked the wolf scene, the loon scene, as the highest in this category. But over time, the cottage couch scene overtook the loon scene. And so, unfortunately, that wasn't in my final polling, but that's a top scene as well. And what fascinates me about this is the scenes you chose most often are not about public identity. They're about private integration, which brings us back to an earlier breadcrumb. Remember I mentioned the phrase, it wasn't dramatic, no thunder, no angels. That's a line from my story about my heated rivalry relationships throughout my life, which I've published on my Substack. Which brings us back to an earlier breadcrumb I shared with you as part of this Compass Quest contest. There's a line from my own story on Substack, my heated rivalry relationship story. And this line is, it wasn't dramatic, no thunder, no angels, because the rest of that sentence describes exactly what these cottage moments represent. A shift that happens quietly, internally, like something aligning. So for the Compass Questers, you'll need to find the full sentence that completes this thought in my Substack titled A Shadowed Life, Turning 40 in My Last Ditch Effort to Not Be Gay. So it's a line from my story and my experience in having heated rivalry relationships as somebody who was closeted in a religious order, you might say. I lived like a monk, like a monastic lifestyle for a long time, but I also had these loving fascinations with other men during that time. And so I've written a series of stories about that, which I'll lead you to, and I'll give you specific instructions for how to find these clues in those stories. For now, just record the first part of that clue, go to the post that I'll share with you the link to later on. And remember the line, it wasn't dramatic. No thunder, no angels, and look for the second part of that clue. Write both of them down, and that becomes part of this second clue. Now to the final showdown between the top scenes. The final three became the wolf incident, which should have been replaced by the cottage couch. I think that would have been a more popular final three. The stairwell kiss and the Russian I love you scene. And the third most popular scene in this tournament was the wolf incident, which I think might have been also the cottage couch at the same time, only got 6% of the vote. I think the cottage couch would have probably gotten more, but the wolf incident only got 6%. Drum roll for the second place scene. It's the stairwell kiss. And that got 44% of the vote. And then the final scene, we all know the top scene, the Russian I love you scene. That is probably one of my favorites, if not the favorite. So I'm glad to see the rest of you in this community. How you voted seems to affirm that as well. And that got 50% of the vote. So the tunnel wins again. I think that was my favorite scene in the original video I did around this series. It wins in the mini tournament, but also wins in my top 20 list, I think, and then also in this one. And that matters to me, I think, and it says something because the tunnel is not a stage. It's not a public declaration, not a press conference, not even a public validation. It's a private threshold for the two of them in their relationship, for Ilya especially. A moment of choosing, of revelation to Ilya, not yet to Shane, but also to the audience. Like I said, it's a revelation to the audience. Okay, this is when Ilya is for the first time in the series that he's acknowledging, I think after maybe 10 years of their relationship, that he actually loves him. And not only does he love him, he can't think of anybody else. He can't do anything. He doesn't know what to do with it. He's devastated because he loves him so much. And so that's a big revelation for Ilya and for us in the audience. Which again brings us back to the compass quest clues for this episode. A life is rarely transformed in one dramatic scene. It's usually fragments over seasons and quiet shifts. But again, I'm not giving you the whole phrase here for this compass quest contest for you to fill out. You'll need to find the ending to these phrases that I mentioned throughout this episode. You need to find the rest of this sentence in the Substack post that I'm going to provide a link to. This is a story told in fragments and seasons. In the second part of this clue, for clue number 2, you have to find the next sentence that follows. It wasn't dramatic. No thunder, no angels. So look for those two parts of clue 2 and keep track of them. Both of them are rating in Substack for you to find. Under the title, A Shadowed Life, Turning 40, and My Last-Ditch Effort to Not Be Gay. Again, that's my story of when I was undercover as Ilya and Shane are in this first season of Heated Rivalry. And I'm rewriting my book that talks about my experience undercover, in the closet, in a very clandestine kind of community where I couldn't be open, I couldn't be out, and how I dealt with my attractions for men while also trying to be a devout Christian. So I'm giving you the links below to those specific lines for you to look for and to read a little bit more about my story in greater detail if you're interested in that. I'm trying to revise my story in light of what I've been reading in Heated Rivalry and give it a little bit more flair and passion and really authenticity. So a little bit more detail about how the Compass Quest works if you're tuning in for the first time. I'm doing this month-long contest from March 1st to March 31st. This should be the first video in that series, but not the first clue. I've given some preliminary clues in previous episodes, which I'll give you instructions to below, so you can look for that first clue, which is an important part of this collection of clues as well. But basically how the Compass Quest contest is working, I'm releasing fragments of clues, and you'll have to find the completion of those clues in different spots. So in my YouTube videos, in my Substack, and on my website. And you connect the dots, collect them. There'll be 5 or 6 clues over the month. The phrases will form a question, an ultimate question that you have to respond to. And you submit that at the end of March on my website for a chance to win one of 3 prizes. And each clue actually relates to my Compass coaching framework, and each letter in the Compass framework stands for something different. I'm just going to share with you what that is briefly. So the C stands for clues and coordinating points. And the O stands for origin story and heroic journey. The M stands for what makes you come alive, your passions and interests. The P stands for powers and personal strengths, those things that make you unique. The A stands for allies, tribe, and accountability. Your friends, your allies, people that can support you. The S stands for sacred anchors and core values, the things that are most important to you that you stand for. And the final S is symphony of self-care and service. And each of these compass points are based on research from my own experience, but also scientific studies that I've come across mostly in the positive psychology research field. And so I've tried to base my coaching framework on actual research to help people walk through transitions in their life, to navigate identity and navigate community and things that they're going through. And I've used this on myself over the years, and it's evolved into this compass framework. I've worked with clients in this capacity as well, which you'll see in my other videos how I do that. So yeah, this is kind of where the compass framework comes from and why I'm trying to introduce you to that through the Compass Quest contest. If I get enough submissions, and I'm leaving, even it's like 10 submissions and I have 3 people that I can pick for the top 3 prizes, I'm going to continue this on through the fall. So each month, over the next 7 months, I'm going to have a different emphasis. So this first month is the C, which stands for clues and coordinating points. And next month, so it'd be April, I'm going to do the O, origin story and heroic journey, and kind of walk you through these different stages of the coaching process so you can do a self-coaching kind of challenge for yourself and see what it's like to walk through a coaching framework with me. And the result, when I do this with clients, they actually develop, through these assessments that I take them through, they also develop a project that they work on. And I encourage them to do a year-long project. So it could be something you work on this year that you explore with yourself. And then next year, 2027, it turns into a major project for yourself, a good life project, I call it. So something that you can do that's based on positive psychology research to make your life better, but also revolves around a passion or an interest that you have that you really want to focus on or explore or experiment with. So that's the goal. Hopefully over the next several months, if the contest goes well, it will continue to evolve and attract more people and then allow me to really develop this more fully. So like I said, this month is about clues and coordinating points. It's really about not just collecting clues. This month is really about practicing something, about noticing patterns, about paying attention, being more mindful, about becoming more fully aware of your surroundings, of what your life's telling you, what you're feeling led to do in some way. The research is clear. When we become more mindful of what life is telling us, if we pay attention and listen, our resilience strengthens, our meaning increases, our direction, our sense of purpose sharpens. Okay, the next official clue drops in my upcoming episode with Seamus. Hopefully you're familiar with Seamus in some of my videos. We've discussed, he's been kind of a co-host discussing Heated Rivalry scenes and coming out. He's kind of continues to go through transition in his coming out journey. So I've walked with him through the Compass process. He's volunteered to do that with me and to show you what it's like for somebody to walk through these steps on their journey. All right, as we close, we know the tunnel phone call won your heart and your vote in this episode. It was a time of quiet, even clandestine revelation in Heated Rivalry. Ilya expresses his love for Shane, undercover of the tunnel and of Russian. But I'm curious, what is still undercover in your life? What are you keeping under wraps? A longing, a love, a life list desire that you have yet to pursue, a risk, a fear that you need to face? What's life trying to tell you subtly, quietly, that you might not be able to keep to yourself much longer? That's a clue of where you might need to go. Welcome to the Compass Quest. Enjoy the hunt.